I needed to make this video. This video is for my mother's comment and about my uncle. She told me, or her twin, my mother's twin, had I don't have communication with my mom, but it's just her twin. They're having her maliciously attack me, and they're training her to be as disgusting to cover up, the Cooper family and the white supremacists, and that's what backs we're just treated that way. Well, anyway, I wanted to talk about because my uncle, apparently, I was told like 5-6 years ago that my uncle Chito Gabriel was murdered by the cartel somewhere because he was involved with drugs. I do know that he was involved with drugs. And one second, let me he was involved in with drugs pretty heavily, to my understanding. I don't know what he was selling. I don't know the details, but I do know that it was rumored to say my family as well, and I knew that he smoked weed because I remember him and my Uncle Beto smoking weed in the backyard over on the north side, and they were smoking weed, and there was like a fire going, and I think I remember I took a couple puffs of weed, and I was like 11 years old or something. I didn't even know. I think that was the first time I'd ever smoked weed. I didn't even know what it is, and I could see their eyes were really red or whatever because they looked really high. But anyway, I talked about this story. My uncle said, "No, don't do that," But anyway, I got like secondhand smoke. I took like a drag or something, and because I thought it was a cigarette. But anyway, I wanted to say this because my mother, when I talked about being about 9 or 10 years old, and she told me this story about my Uncle Gabriel going on a date with a transgender with a girl that he didn't know was a transgender, and he went and took her out to the date and did all these things, and he got home or to some residence of some kind, and my mother was I talked about that. She goes, Héctor, no vas a saber qué hizo, que Chito se yo y no sabe que es un hombre. Y no sabes cómo él se veía. Digo que se pensaba a besarla y luego pongo su mano ahí para abajo y era una mano de pura bolas. And she was laughing, like the way that she was genuinely laughing at this. And she said, and she goes, it's nasty, it's nasty, ooh, and she was doing that. Well, I talked about this story. Frankie, I remember, got told this story, I believe, as well. And we were there because my mom had made that comment. It was kind of like the talk inside our house. And what happened, the way that my mother, I think, got told was also, I don't know which relative, but it could have been my uncle, but I do know that I repeated the story to him. My Uncle Beto, Albert, I repeated the story to him, and he goes, oh, and he looked at me like, oh, you know that? You know what happened? Like, and he didn't know that I knew. He goes, oh, yeah. And he seemed a little on edge, insulted, like, I don't know, like maybe, like when you tell somebody, like when you say some faggot gay word or something and the person's gay and they give you that look like they don't, like obviously because he kind of gave me that look a little bit, but he goes, oh yeah, sí le pasó, yeah, ¿cómo tú sabes eso? Yeah, mi mamá dijo que alguien llegó. I don't know who told my mother that story. My mother would have never known that story unless it was one of the relatives. I don't know who it was. But that's what the story was with that particular type of situation. But I want to verify that you can verify that story that my uncle, because I repeated it to my uncle, and it could have been my uncle that had said that, or whoever it was. I don't know who it was. But I say that because my mother, I remember laughing, and she's like, that's nasty, ew, that's nasty. So I wanted to say this because obviously I was raped by a transgender, and President Barack Obama's daughter is a transgender, movement, and is swarming, attacking my mother and my family, so that he can justify the Cooper family and for the gays. Because my life is over as far as that, the suffering and everything. It's all garbage to those people. But I just wanted to say something about this because that was my mother's character. That is what my mother thought of faggots. That's what my mother thought of transgenders. She doesn't think that's okay to do that to her son, and I'm her son. Now, I don't know what her sister is doing, her sister, her identical twin sisters, but they're completely untrustworthy and contaminating things that I'm very worthless to their life. I'm very worthless. I'm telling you right now, I am not speaking to my mother because I don't want to. I'm not allowed to. And they're using them as a vessel in order to get away with, the white supremacists. Because I'm telling you, my mother does not have a lot of intelligence. She is, in my opinion, I have to say about it is, my mother's identical twin that I've been talking to the majority of this time is very mentally ill. And very controlled, very tightly controlled. They're just playing her stupid, and they can get her to do anything they want, like that, in a snap of a finger, because she has nothing, and all she has is what these people gave her, and the humility and everything. I'm not her son. There's no experience in the things that my mother's twin did. If that was that was her at Taco Bell, and that was her when we went to the Mexican restaurant. The unbelievable disrespect is at the highest altitude you could ever imagine, because you had no right to talk about my father that way. And she's now making up stories. Like, she just called me like 2 weeks ago. I speak to her, and I told her I was reading a book, and she immediately just starts replying, goes, "Oh, sí, tu papá también te leía los libros y todo," because I gave all my brothers this Hector the Protector book, and that went over the water. And so I gave these books to all my brothers, to the brothers that I grew up with, and Marco even one book. So when I started talking to my mother's identical twin, she started to say this and telling me that's what she used to do, is applying that, "Oh no, I know your dad. That's what my dad never did that." She said that my dad never read books to me or started to tell me anything about the books he was reading. He never did. So he would say when it was a good book, never. So I want to say this because this is how they're scumming my father, Raymond Palomo. This is how they're scumming everything to their advantages, and they're using my mother to do it. And it's extremely disrespectful because you had no existence in his life. That was my father. I'm the one doing the work. I was there when all the tragedy and everything and the rapes happened. And that's what they're doing. And they're shuttling that in every which way. I mean, I'm getting on the bus. Every time I get on the bus, there's threatening people on the bus drivers, and they're acting very hostile and threatening. And they got this black nigga on a bus behaving like Barack Obama and trying to behave himself like Frankie, because Frankie got raped by 11 fully ass fucking raped by these guys, and he wants to take that credit and scavenge for the dead body of my Frankie Palomo. So I wanted to say this is how scum and how disrespectful and how nasty the disgusting fucking people are. This is very nasty. This is horrific that it happened. They know, and they're demonstrating to me, they know Frankie is not in any mental way to take care of himself anymore. And this nigga for Barack Obama wants to claim his ass to being ripped open so he can go for his gays and he can go for his transgenders and his black niggas. And then the other white guy, George Bush's, these guys are twins or triplets over here, and this fat guy that sits way on the set of the corner. I wanted to say that because that's what they're doing. And they're manipulating every detail that's going on. Michael Rossiter, Richard Martinez, was very specifically, they want to scavenge the dead remains of my sister. And he starts talking about, like, he has this little jailhouse looking thing that he shuttles his food. I'm trying to talk right now, but they're not letting me because they're using an electronic vote right now. But that's what he had, and he starts to talk to me, and he goes, "Oh yeah, this right here is just this." So he's referencing my dead dad or my dead sister. So they want to accumulate the emotions and the dead remains of that little girl. So I want to make this very serious, that this is how they're mutilating my dead sister. I don't know if my biological father's still alive, but they're definitely after my brother's rectum and credibility. But I want to say this, that this is what's going on. I don't hate my mother's identical twins because, her identical twin, because she has no fucking idea, an earthly idea, how nasty and disgusting this entertainment world is, let alone the details about what's going on. That all is credibility to me storytelling. And they're literally getting her to make up lies and talk. She was not there, not a part of our family, to then start talking about my dead dad. So I want to say this, that they're getting her to play her stupid. And it's a perfect plan to get away with what they want, and they will. But I wanted to make a video about that. My mother told me that story, and she repeated it on the couch. You see it on the couch, and she was like, and she was just laughing about it, like, God, it's fucking, and she was like, it's nasty. Es pasó chito. It's nasty. Ugh. I can't believe le pasó chito. And she talked about it like for a day or two. Again, like just talking about it that way. When she told me that story, it was during that week, the first time I was in the kitchen, she was cooking, and she was saying that, she goes, that's nasty, and she never uses those words. When my mother describes and says stuff like that, it came from a very core source. So I want to say this because black nigga Barack Obama and his platoon leader that said he had a gun and he was going to shoot me, that gets on the bus and is stalking me along with King Cooper's fighters. They're King Cooper's mascots that get on the bus and start harassing me and the bus driver, literally including with the drivers. Even when I go to the grocery store and all these places, they're all doing this. So I want to make this very clear because that's what they're doing. I'm not trying to get involved in it. You don't understand how well I'm being threatened and trained. And I'm more scared of the electronic devices or them to threaten me and say, you better do what I tell you to do and believe and obey the emotions I'm telling you, because this is for the gay unions and for Frankie's ass being ripped, and we're the saviors for the Cooper family. White power for the niggas, and that's exactly what they're doing. I don't like to be racist, but this is exactly racist. I don't think racism is a good thing, but this is about race. This is about white power and for the black niggas and transgenders and gays. That's all that this is. This is nothing more than that, and I don't like it. I don't think that it should be that way. I don't think that, racism, I don't think racism is a good thing. But this is exactly what they do to me. They know what they know what this conversation is. They know what this is really about. But they keep trying to engage in mocking Frankie being raped so he can take it for his niggas and for the police department. I think this guy is a sheriff or something like that, or works for a police officer or something like that. He's just not dressing like one. And so he was making those death threats whenever we were driving by the cemetery. So I want to say something about this because this is how his niggas are doing this. So it's very constant. I don't like to be racist, but when I have to be racist, that is why. And that is why for the white supremacists, because it is about race. And it is about it. I don't like it, but I have to be that way because of what they do. And I get the problems from the Mexicans too. I mean, I'm not saying it's all fun and joy. This is not what I'm saying. Everyone knows what racism is. But when this particular subject of getting raped in your ass and having my mother held in hostage, and they take all this house and money and the World Trade Center and political power and Michael Jackson, they don't give a shit. And my life is nothing but worthless trash to these people. They're just scavenging like fucking rat rodents. That's all that they're doing. So they're very intelligent. They're very smart. They're not here for any good reason. They're there for themselves and for their gays and their own personal movement. It's nothing about loving kindness and putting together and punishing and getting justice. There's no justice in this. They know exactly what they're sacrificing. They don't give a shit about my life. I don't know who they are. So they're just trying to intelligently shift and exchange the emotions and devour them so that it's just all fine and dandy and then acceptance. They got it all planned out. So I want to make this very clear. This is just for their movement. They've already picked out Michael Rossiter and all these other people to make sure they get what they want. Oh, it's not race. No, it's about race. That's exactly what it is. And I don't like it to be that way. I really don't. But I thought I'd make a video on that because it's a disturbing situation. You know, when all these memories I have of my mother are now fizzled away to garbage and nothing for the black niggas and for the white supremacists to take a laugh at because they're making sure that Madison and their white clan gets very set and done, and for the niggas that could have fucked my sister or targeted me, that's why. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They know what they're just trying to sell me for sex like they sold my mother for sex, just like they raped my brother for sex in exchange for that nigga right there. So I wanted to say this. I pray to God. I'm not saying the most holiest things in life, but I pray to God that there's some really, really intelligent, genius, Mexican, authentic women and authentic straight men, that are involved in psychology because but these people, they're pig infested. They're just pig infested. That's all they're out there. They're scavenging. It doesn't change anything. They know how to took the keys away from me. They take my wallet away. They take my money. They take my disability. They take my insurance, my jobs. They take anything away they want and just give it to me. But they let them free and do whatever they want. They shut the doors and throw me nearly out of a trash can for food. But it's only praise for the white supremacists, for the Cooper family. This is all this is. They don't care about justice. They just know that their white mascot needs to be represented to attack me because the way that I live my life is not through the choices that I'm necessarily making. It's how they're completely all attacking me that way, and they're not formed. That's what they're doing. So, like I said, as far as this story goes with my mother, that's what my mother was saying, and I remember my mother joking and laughing about it for like a week. And she never laughed or did anything like that when it talked about the situation. Like the same thing when she told me about gays. I know she knew my brothers were gay, but she, even though she loved my brother Frankie, she'd make those kind of comments to me, about other people. And it's difficult to say, because nobody gives a shit. This is, for Keynote and the transgender, oh, now let's take it to the straight white person, Madison. Oh, no, let's take it to the white supremacist now. And then it's bullshit. That's Sarah Cooper and what all these other people did. But I also wanted to talk about one other thing. I don't know if I've ever shared this. Susie Molina, who, when I was having my bone marrow transplant, and I was dying in the hospital, and she came into the hospital and I was dying, and Sarah was sitting on a chair she was there for maybe an hour or so, and it just happened that she happened to come by while I was like throwing up, and I was like dying, and then I was left in a room alone when things started to get really weary and bad. And Susie came in for a second, Susie Molina, and God bless her soul. It's a white woman, blonde white woman, blue eyes, and she came in and she looked, and I'm not kidding you, she was defending me from Sarah Cooper. I swear to you, and I had no idea what was going on. So Susie Molina got all this information, and I don't even know because I only had seen him like a few times in my life with her kids. But I do know that she's a very loving person, and she's a real woman, real straight woman. And when I saw her, she found out just by asking me questions, or just the way that I was talking, and my mom obviously not being there, and Frankie, Julian, and all this situation, that I didn't know what was going on. So Susie Molina looked over, and she looked over, she goes, oh, she's a pig. And she looked over at me, and I was like on the verge of dying, like not just dying, but very sick. And then Sarah Cooper was there, and Sarah Cooper just didn't give a shit. Like if you saw her attitude, it was more like, I'm gonna wait until you die. It wasn't. I've been around loving and caring people. It wasn't it was kind of a pity situation. But Susie Molina looks over at her, and she goes, and she, after looking at me, she goes, she's a pit. And she goes and she looks over at Sarah, and she turns around to Sarah because she's standing right in front of Sarah, like to the side, in front of my hospital bed, and looks at her, and she goes like this. She looks at her, and she's like sitting on the chair like this, and she goes, and she's like standing like this, and she goes, "Hey, Sarah." And she goes like this, like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what?" And you could tell conflict, 100%. Like, she doesn't know. And this is why she was sort of this protector, let me figure out what's going on. About a week later, or 3 days later, she comes in, talk to her, and I think, she was like, "Oh, let's go get something to eat. Wait a couple of days, you're on chemo." I wait a couple of days, I drive to the hospital, she picks me up after a doctor visit or something like that, and we go get something to eat. And when we go get something to eat, she was asking me questions, and I don't know, this is one of the reasons I think somebody was poisoned, or they poisoned me, or someone else, my mother was poisoned, or something had gone on. And I remember her moving her straw while she was talking to me. She just started moving her straw while she was talking to me, and then going like this. And then drinking, and then look, so she was sort of investigating me a little bit, and I was like, let me tell you, I was bald, no hair, I had like stripes, I had like a little line on my eyebrow. I mean, I was floated from, like, I was like moving like this, like a marshmallow or something, just because I was floated, and for the proportion of my body. And I remember we ate in a Mexican restaurant, and I could see a lot of the people there could feel empathetic for me, and I was just horrifically sick. I mean, I had been up for like 2-3 days already, and I hadn't had much sleep, and I was this close to starting to cry in front of her and express myself what that transplant was really making me feel. And not because she said that, I knew she was a protector. I knew she was in sort of like this sort of vessel of an angel. I felt and I trusted her more than any other relatives. Anybody that went in the hospital, I felt she was good. She had a special light. There was a special light that she had. Very smart and heart interested. Sarah Cooper, I'm telling you, and Ken Cooper, because the family knows what those people are like. Even Robert Palomo's mentioned something about it, and so has Michael said something about it, and other people have said, because they were nasty, real nasty people. And but I wanted to say this because I know that Susie Molina was there to protect and help. Like, your mother loves you, like she really was. So I wanted to say something about that. Like I said in this video, I don't like racism, but that's what it ends up being. It has to be that way, and it's the people like that, and it's the people that they send because they train. They know my mother has the intelligence that know easy to pick around and do whatever they want. They shove money in her mouth, doesn't matter. They know I'm the one sole protector, a storyteller, all these things. They know that. They just want Frankie's rectum, and they want to rip it open again for laughter. There is a professional place of counselors and stuff that I would have liked to be able to do. They're just, any evidence, anything, this is for them because they want to give it for the transgender movie Keynote 97.90B. Then they'll add somebody else, and they'll add somebody else. As far as it goes in the inside circle with my mother, it's bad. It's real bad. So I wanted to say this because, love you, Frankie. And you have no idea how much my interest is with God, with you, and what we went through, and what these people will get away with, and what they did. but we can't do nothing about it. And neither was Mom. You know, I had spent more time with Frankie than Julian did. And Julian was too young to understand.